Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Shuey, the founder of Happily, the largest network of freelance event specialists in the country and virtual event teams on demand. Every week on Wednesday at 2 p.m., I hop onto LinkedIn and YouTube Live to deep dive with a multi-hyphenate subject matter expert on topics of interest to culture makers, community organizers, founders, and event producers. And today I'm with Amy Jo Kim, an advisor and a total badass. Amy? Hi.
Great to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. You're actually the first person that I asked to be on a LinkedIn Live with me. So I've done a couple of them already, but you were my number one person I wanted to interview. So thank you.
It's so much fun to be here with you.
So Amy Jo is the mastermind behind game thinking. It's a term which she coined and a practice which she teaches to some of the most innovative founders around the world. And Amy Jo, really, you are a legend. I think that's the best way that I could describe it. Not to embarrass you too much, but tell me if actually these legendary stories about you are true. So you helped develop the mechanics that moved us from Guitar Hero to Rock Band.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. You helped design Netflix's first recommendation system.
Along with an amazing team.
Good answer. And you were one of the first online community architects debuting eBay's Power Seller program.
Yes, I worked with eBay when they were really tiny and putting their core systems in place. Again, amazing team.
And then the last one, this is the one that gave me chills when I heard it, was that you helped the original Sims team take their game online and make it a worldwide phenomenon.
I did work on the original Sims.
So, tell me more about what that's like. What's the process like? What's the team made up, and how do you really help accelerate their goals?
Which project in particular? Because each project is different a bit.
Yeah, let's talk about the Sims one.
So the Sims revolved around Will Wright, who is the visionary, amazing genius game designer. He had built a number of Sim games before The Sims, including Sim City. And I worked with Will on Sim City, actually, on a game before The Sims. I had a long relationship on many games. And I had worked with him as a system designer and social architect, helping them build the website on SimCity that hooked into The Sims and let people exchange cities and do all that stuff. So Will tinkered with ideas for probably a good year before we really spun the team up. So in the beginning, it was a really small team of Will and kind of a rotating cast, a few key players, Bing Gordon, who was the chief creative officer at EA because they had bought Maxis. And we would meet regularly. Will would go off and build things and really run experiments. And out of those experiments came the core of The Sims, but they didn't know at first what it was going to be. They ran a lot of, directed by Will, ran a lot of small, high learning experiments, and then emerged this really core of fun. Then they started building up the team. There was maybe 20 people for a while, then it got bigger and bigger, but it really changed over time. And that was one of the games I really saw what could happen if you weren't sure what to do and you were disciplined and brilliant enough that you could merge vision with a relentless search for market truth and find that core of fun. Game designers call it finding the fun. It's really finding that spark, that core thing that everything else is built on top of. There was a very similar process in Rock Band. We spent 7 months on Rock Band tuning one song, the core loop. And it was maddening.
Which song was it? Do you remember?
It was actually a song written by somebody internal who was in an indie band because we hadn't gotten our rights yet. And I was very sick of it by the end. But it was his song and he was great. He was like an engineer on the team. Everyone on that team played in bands and stuff. But we were running lots and lots and lots of small experiments. And if you've ever played a Rock Band song, there's a lot going on in those songs with the feedback. If you really break down how that magic happens, it's a team of people sweating it out in a room for 7 months, tuning all the bits of the systems so they work together to give you the feeling that you're really playing music, which is and the interesting thing about Rock Band is that I really wanted to build more of the game, and the head of the project said, "Look, if this doesn't feel like magic, none of the rest of it matters. We won't build the game. We won't greenlight it because this has to feel that good. Just this one song. Everything else builds on top of it." That's what really great design is about, is finding that nugget, that thing. So the team changes over time. Same with Rock Band. When I was working on it, it was like 7 or 8 core people and a lot of experiments. And then it was bigger, and but depending on the game team, by the time it ships, it can be hundreds.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, I remember one vacation. I was like in Barcelona and I got Guitar Hero like in my hands and I played and I beat that game until I was like at the advanced level. And then when Rock Band came out, I used to go, there would be bars in LA where you could play Rock Band like live with everyone. And I would go every week.
Oh my God. Well, it was one of the greatest thrills in my entire life was working on Rock Band. But you ask about like team and stuff. I knew that development team for 10 years and had a whole relationship before I worked on that game. So, relate companies and games come and go. Relationships are a long game. And
Yeah.
that's one of the best things I've learned. And I know you know that too. And there you have a lot of wisdom about that. It's a long game. And I got that gig partly because of that long relationship.
Mm. I think that you've mentioned experiments, and I know I've taken some like courses with you in the past, and the way that you think about experiments is so interesting. I'm just wondering, what's the latest thing that you're working on and experimenting with?
That's a great question. So we run a year-round program called the Team Accelerator, where we work with funded product teams from very ambitious startups through very large companies and multinationals and global brands. And we're always experimenting in there. And very recently, we've experimented with creating a very special kind of kickoff sprint that we call the Innovation Boot Camp. And we've been running it for about 8 months with our teams and refining it. And it's been really interesting to see what outcomes we get from a certain kind of project when we start the project in different ways. And I bet a lot of you listening, yeah, do projects and you kick off projects, right? And you can kick them off with a meeting. You can kick off a project with a workshop, like an all-day workshop. That's very common. We're trying this new thing, and we've been doing that with our teams and getting better and better results. And so we've started to incorporate it into more of what we're doing. And so just this week, we're running a 4-day experiment, a free training that's structured as a mini sprint, 4 days, an hour each, teaching people the basics of game thinking and how to innovate smarter. And it's been amazing. And the structure of it and the content of it and the way it works has been refined through all these other team meetings. And now I'm getting to bring it to a wider group of people, very international group of people. And it really excites me because it's kind of a better way to do this thing I used to do. And now I've learned how to do it better, meaning it's way better for my clients. And it's also more fun for me. So I'm having a ball.
That's awesome. How do you measure better? Like, is it just through surveys or how do you know?
No, I measure better by the outcomes. I'm very outcome driven. So in our team accelerator, it's a 3-month program. And we have a methodology that we remix for each team to work for them where they're at. And I measure outcome by how much progress we made, if we've got the problem solved. Sometimes I'm working with a game team and they're trying to get a game greenlit. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's measured like we were able to come up with an idea that could get greenlit.
Yeah.
Sometimes outcome is measured by, did we really solve the problem that we uncovered and dealt with when we first started working together? So outcome is measured in different ways, but it's always defined at the beginning of the project. And then progress is how many iterations through an iteration and learning loop did we make during the 3 months? Could we go through one, or could we go through two or three? And the more iterations through the loop, the more progress you make. And that's agility and speed on the team's time. And so what I notice is when I do these initial sprints with the team, and I've refined it a lot because we've tried a lot of things. Everybody on the team gets an overview of how the process works and how it's a system where the output of one thing feeds into the input of the next. And that's very helpful for doing better work and not going off on tangents when you're in the middle of doing the many activities that we lead our teams through. So there's it's hard to give people an overview without overwhelming them. That's actually empowering, that helps them do better work in like 8 weeks or 12 weeks. And that's what I've been finding with the teams, that it's way better. I used to do this as a 1 or 2 day workshop where I'd fly somewhere and work with the team I was kicking off.
Right. I was going to say,
and
you worked it around the world, like in-person workshops. I know Singapore, China, France, you're always somewhere else, obviously the US, but like how has it changed for like this online and virtual environment?
That's such a good question. Frankly, when I had kids, I started to think about ways I could engage more virtually. And I had a lot of overseas clients, like in Japan, Square Enix. So we've been working online for a long time. There's also real value, especially if you want to go to a country, to go there and meet with the team, etc. So I really enjoy that. But what I found is when you go somewhere and you're giving somebody a workshop, you really have to pack it in, and people get overwhelmed. They get it, but they tune out, they wander away, especially like the higher level execs and stakeholders. So it's very hard in a 1 or 2 day workshop to really teach something deep and meaningful, that where you want them to understand, like an end-to-end system. But people love workshops, they love to get away from the office. There's definitely some camaraderie and team building and relationship building that goes on. So what I found, because about a decade ago, we moved most of our business online, and it's really been exclusive for private clients that our business has been online for the last 3 years, including clients 20 minutes down the road. I found that, one, if you have the right structure, just enough structure, not too much, but just enough, working online is a total strategic advantage. It saves everybody time, it's lower friction, etc. But you really need to keep things on track. And that also means documents and templates that are designed for online sharing. It really makes a difference. It means you design for this screen for the 16:9 horizontal ratio rather than document sized, in terms of the way you present information to your teammates. And we found that we used to try and just replace the 1 day workshop, first with our clients, and then I've run 1 and 2 day workshops publicly, where we were essentially online with breaks all day long. It sucks. I tried and tried to beat my head against the wall. It sucks. It's exhausting. Nobody wants to be online all day.
Yeah.
But then I stepped back and I said, okay, I'm doing so much online work that's working beautifully and is a total strategic advantage. What's working? And a big thing that's working is sprints. And what I mean by sprints is not, there's the Google design sprint. It's what all of us understand, agile, 1 and 2 week or a 4 week, but it's a focused period of time with a key focus that's shared by a team. It's got a beginning and an end. And there's a daily checkpoint, daily touch in, daily stand-ups, whatever you want to call them. There's different kinds of sprints, but the focus and the daily touch points works incredibly well. I have done massive projects with teams in Japan with that structure. And I forgot we were in different places. We were just collaborating. So I took that structure and applied it to the workshop, and I started working on turning a workshop into a sprint where you'd meet an hour a day for a week. And you get better results. It's in less time, there for all kinds of reasons.
It's interesting, like to break it up over the course of weeks because I think it allows people to actually digest and learn information. Because I mean, even I feel like every time I talk with you for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, whatever, sometimes it takes me months to really digest like the nuggets of wisdom that you drop. I remember one time you were like, level them up, Sarah. Like when I was asking you about how can I help provide more value to the happily freelancer community. And I mean, since then, I just always am thinking about what are the different things that we can do. And so I think that makes a lot of sense. Even going to like big conferences or summits, they're like 4 3-day things. And like when I was at TED, people used to always use this phrase, like it's you're drinking out of a fire hose. And so you just get very overwhelmed. So I love this notion of breaking things up into nuggets and chunks. Do you feel like it allows for more that focus? Like, do people miss the team and the camaraderie and the relationship building that happens, or do new behaviors emerge? How does that work out?
I think new behaviors emerge, but there's so many ways that you can provide online something that's really similar to what people do physically. So, for instance, we're running this 4-day training, an hour a day, and we have a private group on Mighty Networks where we're hosting all the replays, all the slides, and all the conversation. And each day has a very simple prompt we end with where it's like, we just taught you an activity. Go try it, do it, apply it to what you're doing, share your answer online. So there's this, we're still doing stuff. It's just asynchronous. So I think when you think about the structure, and you know this better than anyone, Sarah, of a physical event, there's synchronous time and there's asynchronous time. There's everybody in the ballroom and there's lots of small group stuff, right? There's different social groupings. There's time alone, browsing things and maybe watching the news and calling your family in your room time, right? And so you can actually recreate, you can say, okay, that's all needed. How do I recreate that in a way that works online?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of creativity. The thing I really want to communicate about sprints is that there's nothing sacred about them. They're a wonderful, dynamic, flexible tool. A 1-week sprint is great. A 2-week sprint is great. Our 12-week, 3-month program is in and of itself a 12-week sprint. We call it the innovation sprint, but we structure it into monthly themes and then 2-week sprints within it. And it's amazing how much you can get done when you look at things that way. So there's a 3-day sprint, it's a way to give a narrative arc and a focus to what you're doing. And it really helps for collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and do you find that like people who how big are these teams and sprints? Do you find that there is a max capacity? What are some best practices with setting up those environments? And also, I think even people would be really interested in knowing about tools. Like I've actually been pretty impressed with Mighty Networks and how it helps with delivering asynchronous content. But what other, what are some best practices in terms of the way you set up the system and the number of sort of people participating and the tools that you help bind them together?
Right. So tools is such a big thing. I can share what I use, but I'm not an expert. Um, in terms of best practices, I think there's a few things. It's really important to understand if you're in broadcast mode, which is one to many, or if you're in discussion mode, which works better with smaller groups. It's very frustrating to be in a room with 200 people that's a discussion, for instance. But you can manage that by having the notion of a studio audience and then the bigger audience and then the leader. So, one thing that, we talk about taking a long 1 or 2 day workshop and breaking it into like 1 hour, half hour, hour and a half meetups that happen over many days. That's chunking, right? You're sort of chunking the experience, the synchronous part of the experience. And there's a lot of chunking that goes on in translating things into online. Carl Kapp, who you might want to have on your show, I'm happy to introduce you. He's a brilliant learning strategist. He teaches at a university. He does advanced gamification. He talks about microlearning. He just wrote a book on microlearning. And what it really means is small chunks. It's like what works online. A 45-minute talk doesn't work online as well as a 12-minute TED talk. And 5-minute chunks of learning work even better. People consume really well. You can have a bunch of 5-minute chunks that communicate what you were saying in the 45 minutes, but it's very, very different online, unless it's some sort of live synchronous performance in which 45 minutes or 30 minutes in this case does work. But there is this, interactivity as well. So it's some best practices are be really clear about what parts of your event are broadcast, meaning one to many, a celebrity, a speaker, whatever, and what parts of them are discussion.
Yeah.
And then I'm a huge fan of the flipped classroom blended learning where the broadcast parts are pre-recorded and people could watch them multiple times and pause, etc. And then the live part is as interactive as possible.
Yep.
But that takes a lot of planning to do well, and not everybody likes to do that. And another thing is if you're going to have interactivity and you have a lot of people, have breakout rooms. It's really great if you have a bigger group. You can have the main person and that sense of everybody together, and then for the discussions, Zoom has breakout rooms. We've been using those a ton. 4-8 people is a pretty good discussion.
Yeah,
everybody gets a chance to talk.
Yep, I just gave a tutorial on like how to do Zoom breakout rooms earlier this morning, and someone asked like what's the maximum, and I said 8 is your maximum, like maybe 12, but that feels like a lot. So I think that's interesting. And even earlier, or like last week, I was doing a consultation with a mindfulness retreat and summit, and the producer there, like usually the first thing with mindfulness retreats is like ditch your screen, right? And it was really interesting to see how they were trying to take everything that they did in the real world and put it in this 4-day experience. And my biggest suggestion to them was like take all of your content, because they had 8 different types of program formats, from like go take a walk, all the way to speaker sessions, and lay them out on a grid in exactly what you were saying before: one to many, one to one, several to many, several to several. And I think that when you start to think about the interactions, then it'll be a lot easier for you to develop the sense of when it should be synchronous versus asynchronous and which tools you should use. Cool. Well, I'd also like to know if there's anything that like in the future that you're looking forward to experiment with, or what are you really excited about next?
So I'm really excited about offering this 5-day online innovation bootcamp that we've been iterating and perfecting with our high-end clients to the world.
Who's coming to these, or who usually comes?
So it's product leaders, UX designers, startup CEOs, directors of innovation at large brands. Those are smart directors of engineering. A lot of C-suite people come, and also builders, people that love to build. Anyone who wants to innovate smarter and build a better product. Our audience tends to be very international. A lot of people that love the intersection of gaming and UX, and they want something that drives sustained engagement and goes beyond gamification. We get a lot of people that love gamification and want the next thing, the deeper thing, now that they've absorbed that and understood it's what it can and can't do.
Yeah, and like just, sort of the high level, like what is the difference between gamification and game thinking?
So game thinking is a system and a methodology for bringing innovative products to life and driving deep engagement based on working on The Sims, working on Rock Band, working on Covet Fashion, working on eBay, and also working on dozens of projects that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
It's the practices of the innovative, all of those were tremendously innovative for their time. There's practices, all of them shared their embodying game thinking. There's three things to and gamification is great, but gamification is often, whether people give it lip service or not, gets focused on mechanics. It's mechanics first. It's like, here's some game mechanics. How about a streak? Blah, blah, blah. And when you go mechanics first, you don't build a coherent customer journey. Game thinking is the process that will lead you to building the right product for the right people and having it drive engagement with a coherent customer journey that engages the people you're intending and pulls them back. So there's three interesting things. We focus on leveraging hot core super fans to speed up iteration and innovation when it's early. We focus on creating a high level vision for your mastery path or customer journey that you can test early and refine and make sure you get the right mental model, because the wrong mental model can kill you. And see, a lot of my clients, just like the mental model didn't map to people's and people couldn't use it. And then the third thing is we teach you how to create a compelling learning loop that actually empowers your customers to become better at something rather than tracking and manipulating behavior, which is often what people that start with gamification end up doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
definitely.
those are some of the key differences.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, I think I jumped in on what you were doing like a little bit earlier. It was a couple of years ago, and it's fantastic. I think it's wonderful. It's a wonderful opportunity that you're doing this for free until when? Yeah, I have your book.
So yeah, so if anybody wants to learn about it, every week somebody says to me, I got your book and I kind of feel like you gave away too much. And I'm like, you know what? That's all right.
Again, like it is so dense, and it's like when you're a master, like the simplicity and the is so difficult to understand, and being able to work directly with you is such a gift.
It's been wonderful to work with you too. I think the shift to online events is very exciting, and there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. There's a lot of lessons that have been learned that we can leapfrog and, make new mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yep, totally. Okay, so I actually invented a little game just for my LinkedIn Live thing, which I played once before. And since you're into games, I was hoping that you would be down to play this with me too. And I call it Bad Search, Good Job. And so don't cheat. But what I've done is I basically searched your name inside of LinkedIn. And I'm going to show you this person's profile, and it's actually Amy JoJo Kim. And I would like for you to tell me what you think Amy JoJo Kim does. Where is she from, and what is she doing to survive COVID?
Wait, is this a real profile? I don't understand.
This is a real profile of a real human.
Somebody's okay.
Also named Amy JoJo Kim.
Okay.
Isn't that amazing?
Are they spoofing me, or is it a real person?
It's a real person. Check this out. Hold on. Okay. And here's Amy JoJo.
Okay.
It's kind of tough because there's two of them, right? But I'm assuming Amy JoJo is on the right.
So what's the question?
So there's three questions. The first is, where do you think Amy JoJo lives? And where do you live? Where are you based?
I am based in Silicon Valley.
Uh-huh. And so Amy JoJo?
I have no idea where Amy JoJo lives. Vietnam.
Okay. And then what do you think Amy JoJo does for a living?
Well, all I can see is one photo, Sarah. I don't see a whole LinkedIn profile.
Just a game. It's just a super.
Okay. Maybe she's a web designer.
Okay. And what do you think Amy JoJo? Well, this one I don't know the answer to, but what do you think? What do you imagine she's doing to survive COVID?
sheltering in place.
Well, that's true too. And here's actual Amy Jojo. She's an architect in Beijing, China, which I think is really interesting since you're a community architect and she's an architect of buildings. And again, I'm not sure what she's doing to manage shelter in place, but what have you done? What's like one like good or like fun, delightful coping strategy that you've had, over the past few weeks?
So we are taking long walks with the dog in nearby Coyote Point. If anybody knows the Bay Area, Coyote Point is this beautiful park. And the amazing thing is they don't allow dogs normally. There's a guard at the gate. And it's a beautiful park with playgrounds and all these hiking trails right by the bay. There's no guard at the gate. And every time we go there, it's overrun with dog owners keeping a respectful distance. And it's like a magical parallel universe because you're not supposed to have dogs, but it's closed. And we go almost every day, and it is just incredibly spirit lifting. So a big thing, I actually made a video about it. So Game Thinking TV, if you go there on YouTube, search for Game Thinking TV, you'll find our videos. And we made a video about exercising and just getting outside and remembering to walk around. So, there's so much that's going on, and it's really uncertain, and there's a lot of fear, and a lot of people are struggling big time. So there's, I have a lot of empathy for that. There's also a lot of beauty and inspiration and creativity happening everywhere. And keeping ourselves mentally and physically healthy is probably the most grounding and important thing all of us can do every day. Getting outside and exercising, or even in your house, is so hard to remember, but it's my lifeline right now.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
Walk around the block.
You're so lucky you have a dog. We watch YouTube videos of dogs like getting groomed, like that, and people like doing tricks with their dogs too. It's like that's awesome that you get to spend time in a special place with your four-legged friend. All right, so thank you again. I'm going to show this as well. GameThinking.io/lab. Definitely go on there and sign up for Amy Jo's free course, and subscribe to her YouTube. And don't forget to follow her on LinkedIn, Amy Jo Kim. Thank you again so much.
It's been a total delight.
And thanks everybody for joining us. It was really great to spend time with you. Next week, I will be with Rianne Riley Waters, and she is a sustainability programs manager for the U.S. Green Buildings Council, the people behind the Platinum LEED certification. And what she's done is pretty incredible. She was actually able to take their Green Build trade show where all the sustainable builders come together. It's massive. And they do an amazing, phenomenal, probably best in class, I would say, job at actually tracking their sustainability measures with events. And she actually took that program and figured out a way to make that a global program, which is no small feat considering all the regulations are so different in every country. And so Rianne is just a delight, and we're going to be speaking with her next Wednesday at 2 p.m. PST. Thank you all for joining, and see you soon. Bye.